I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Welcome to today's show. On this episode, I have Vickeidy of Sewspicious. If you have not seen her on Instagram, go check her out. She's released a few patterns this year. One of them is her free pattern, Rosalia, with her AGF Sewcialite bundle. Go look at it. It's beautiful. She's also newly an Aurifil Artisan, so that's going to be super fun. She has a lot of cool projects coming up. And for those of you who wanted to know, she does tell us how she wore a cast for 2 months without breaking a bone. So stay tuned for that. And let's get going. Hi there. Thanks for being here with me. I'm going to use this moment to plug my Patreon. If you haven't already, you can hop over to patreon.com/notyourgranny'squiltshow. If you pledge your dollars to help me out, you get a Not Your Granny's Quilt Show logo sticker sent right to your door. So hop on over there today. That's patreon.com/notyourgranny'squiltshow. Whether you're out there listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or you're on YouTube watching the shenanigans, I would really love to see some stars out there or some thumbs up, some new subscriptions. So if you haven't yet, hop on to whatever platform you're on and click those like buttons, give me some stars, leave a review. It really helps me out, and I would just be forever grateful. So let's get those stars rolling in. Thanks. Welcome to the show, Vickeidy. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I've been eyeballing you for a while because, I mean, you're an art gallery girl, an Aurifil girl, and a teacher like I used to be. And then I saw your post and you talked about your cast story, which we'll get to, but I was like, I got to talk to this girl.
I have a lot of weird injury stories to share. I get them all.
Yeah. Yeah. I get weirdly injured too. I literally fell flat on my butt earlier this week because there's a spot in my parents' neighborhood because I work out of my parents' house. Like that's where our quilting business is.
Mhm.
And in the street right outside their house is like just a low spot in the concrete where water collects. And I stepped through it and slid, just like my feet went right out from underneath me. Like I just
Oh,
fell flat on my butt. And strangely, like the only injury is like a weird scratch on my leg that I don't know how it got there. And then my thumb is like sprained.
oh no.
So I'm right there with you. I get weird injuries too.
Ay, ay, ay.
But before we talk about weird injuries, let's go back to your journey into how you got to sewing or how you became a quilter. Like,
Yes, I have a pretty long story because I didn't start quilting when I first started sewing.
mhm.
So we can backtrack. So my mom is a fashion designer and
Oh,
she studied fashion design in the Dominican Republic. She had a well-established business where she would make custom clothing for people. And she used to run a business from outside of her house. And so I grew up in that environment. Like I would help out, I would sew buttons and all that
mhm.
stuff. But I distanced myself from it. Didn't want to be in it for a while. And then my family migrated to the United States. I saw on Facebook Marketplace a sewing machine that was being sold that reminded me of one that my mom used to have. So I bought it for her. It didn't really sell, so I refurbished it and I loved it. It was an old Singer.
Yeah.
And I presented it to her as a gift. And she's like, oh, I don't want this. I have too many machines.
Oh no.
And she said I could keep it. And so I kept it and I was like, okay, I have a machine. I know the basics. Maybe I should try it out.
Mhm.
And I fell in love with the process of refurbishing a machine. That's how I started.
Wow.
And so I started collecting vintage sewing machines.
Oh.
Um, And then I learned about a Singer featherweight.
Mhm.
And one of the descriptions said that it is the perfect sewing machine for quilter. And I did not know what that was. So I Googled what a quilter was.
Yeah.
And I fell in love and I decided to make it my 2018 New Year's resolution to make a quilt.
Wow.
And I haven't stopped.
Wow. That's amazing. So you just kind of grew up around it, but never were really like quilting, but so that's really cool.
Right, because in the Dominican Republic, we don't need quilting. It's a hot
Mhm.
weather, in the Caribbean. So that's not a thing that I was exposed to or knew about until here in the United States.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah, I always wonder like how prevalent quilting is in different parts of the world just because, I think no, in the north of North America, it gets really cold and we need lots of blankets and quilts to keep warm. So I just whenever I hear of like a warm place having a big group of quilters, I'm like, that seems crazy to me. Mhm.
Yeah, I
But
recently learned that Costa Rica has a big quilting community that
mm,
has been well established for years. I learned about this in a Spanish quilting podcast, and I
wow.
did not know that was a thing. So,
Wow, I didn't know that either. I mean, they're so useful. They can be used for more than just, keeping warm. They can be window covers. They can be, just covers for seats. You don't have to use it as a blanket per se, but that's
mhm,
really cool. I didn't realize that. Hmm,
yeah.
I love learning new things about quilting.
The more you know.
Yeah, right. So, have you been teaching in the United States the whole time that you have lived here or
So I migrated here when I was 15 years old.
okay.
I was ready to do my senior year of high school, but because I was so young, I didn't
Oh,
speak the language. I had to repeat my junior year. But I did go to college for teaching secondary education. That's my passion. And this
okay.
will be my 13th year doing it.
Oh wow.
With the exception of last year, I took it off because I had a baby.
Oh,
So I stayed home with her and I just went back to work this year, 2022.
okay. Wow.
Mhm.
13 years. I only taught for 8 years and I jumped ship, so I was ready to be done. But that's cool. I think if I did go back, I probably would do secondary because I was doing elementary and that's hard.
I I can.
I
I
know.
cannot even imagine. I teach 8th through 11th grade right now,
Mhm.
and 8th grade is the most difficult grade for me to teach because they're at that pivotal age where they're not really kids, but they think that they're grown. So
Mhm.
we're always butting heads for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, so it's the one class or the one grade that I haven't been able to fall in love with teaching that age group yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I just they're like they have like no empathy yet at that age. So they just are wild and out there and you're like, "What are you doing?"
All the hormones,
Oh yeah.
everything is so big, all the drama. Like
Mhm.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
That's the youngest age group I can teach right now. And I
Yeah.
barely do it.
You're like, "I'm barely making it." Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you moved here when you were 15. That's like a hard age too, but and being so young and ready to graduate, that's awesome. Like that you were so far ahead, but it's hard when
Hmm.
it doesn't translate either because then you have to repeat. You're like, I already did this.
Yeah. And also starting college at 15, 16 years old, that's just
Yeah.
it would be really hard, especially like having just moved to a new country, not speaking the language, and then such of a huge transition. I think even though I had to repeat a year in high school, I see it as an investment and not as
Mhm.
a waste a year. Because I formed great relationships. I have friends from high school
Yeah.
that we're still friends. And if I had just been there for 1 year, I feel like I wouldn't have had the chance to form those bonds
Yeah.
and relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good that you had
Hmm.
the opportunity to just to because I think I could only imagine, moving, yeah, and not having the language and trying to get relationships and get to know people is very difficult and, just a
Hmm.
challenge. But that's really cool that you were able to make friends and have them and move forward with that. So, I mean, I've only changed schools, normal schools, and that was hard enough. Like being like, oh no, now I'm in this sea of all new people. And yeah, wow, that's really, it's like always inspiring to me, like hearing people moving to new countries and learning the new language and, you know, making their life, try to fit in enough, but also just like being themselves and still moving through the world with their own personality and bringing their experience into it, because I think it's so incredible what people can share.
And
So,
yeah, and how resilient
mhm,
human beings are,
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's it's always like a miracle to me that people can survive that, like without just shutting themselves inside and not really experiencing their life, but it's really cool. Like, you know, it gives me a lot of respect for you and for people like you who have done that, and I just am in awe. It scares me, but like
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, my husband and I always talk about wanting to retire and spend like half the year in Spain and then still come back, but we're both like, "Oh no, we don't know Spanish very well," and like we're gonna look like a bunch of idiots. And I'm like, I think as long as we're willing to like laugh it off and like look a little bit foolish for the learning experience, I think people would receive that better than us getting like frustrated that we can't communicate, or, you know, getting mad at
Mhm.
ourselves, or just not talking because we're scared to talk or say what we want to say. And so we're working on saying little phrases to each other throughout the day and when we're just at home together. And sometimes I'll say things and he'll think it. He's like, "Hold on. I think I know what you're saying. Hold on." And he'll like think it out. And sometimes it takes like 5 minutes for him to work out what I've just said to him. But like, I love that he's trying so hard. And, I think that to me kind of makes the experience seem less scary if it does happen. But anyway,
Mhm.
enough
And the
about
fact that
me.
you're both walking this path together, right? So you have each other to rely on and help each
Yeah.
other out, which is great. You're
Yeah.
not doing it on your own.
Yeah. I think if I was just learning it and he was like, "Oh, whatever, I'll learn it when I get there," I would be like, "No, no." But
Not happening.
yeah. And I get sometimes that's the case. Like you just, especially when you're young, you're like, your parents are like, "We're moving," and maybe you didn't have an opportunity to learn the language, or, there's a dire circumstance that makes it so you have to move without any notice. And so, you never know somebody's reason for being where they are and their
Hmm.
level of language. So, just good to stay open.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah. So you started quilting in 2018. So what was that like? Did you take classes? Did you just get on YouTube? Like, how did you get into it?
So first, I bought a Craftsy quilt kit
Mhm.
um, because I wanted to make that specific one. My nephew was going to be born in February, so I said I had a month to learn this. And so yeah, I learned on YouTube. I learned Googling. My best friend at the time was also wanting to learn, so we bought the exact same kit, and
Mm,
so we were trying to figure it out together.
yeah.
Um, the quilt was not finished until after my nephew was like 5 or 6 months old, um, but I did
Yeah.
it.
That's the important part, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we figured it out.
That's really cool.
Hmm.
And, again, not doing it alone. I don't think I would have learned to quilt if it wasn't for my best friends who forced me to do it and were there with me every step of the way. And that really, it made all the difference because I wasn't sitting in a dark room by myself crying over fabric.
Yeah, I'm a sweaty person, so whenever I was trying to cut fabric, I was so nervous because I didn't want to mess it up because you only have
Mhm.
so much, and like I would get the fabric wet because
Oh
my
no.
fingers were so sweaty.
Oh
And
no.
my friend's like, "You need to relax. It's going to be okay." I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what to do."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I
And
need to
that's
Google this real quick.
yeah. Well, and cutting fabric is like the one area you don't want to mess up because, like you said, you only have so much. And especially when you buy a kit, like you might not be able to match that same fabric or that same color with your local shops. And it's like really tricky. So I'm with you.
Right.
I get really nervous when I cut fabric too, still, even though, it's my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just messed it up before and had to go back, and they haven't had the right thing had to like make work whatever I had left. And it was like, I just hate that because I don't want to put that out for people, and be like, well, I messed this up, so don't look at it. But also, here's this thing you paid a lot of money for.
Yeah. I don't want to be pointing this out all the time, but there is a mistake on this quilt. And like you're just saying that, but
Yeah.
it's there, but you don't want them to see it. But you're
Hmm.
like, I did it, it's great, but there's this thing on it. Like, you
Right.
know,
It's like,
yeah.
should I warn you so that you don't freak out when you see it, or should I just not point it out? Because 99% of the time, people don't see the mistakes because they're not looking at that part.
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't know it unless you point it out.
No,
Yeah.
no, exactly. I
Like to
literally,
us, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
As a to us, it's like we can see it, it's there.
Hmm.
But if you don't know what you're looking for, then it's just the most beautiful quilt you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Well, I think I was gonna say, oh, on my very first quilt I made with my best friends, I keep it on my bed all the time. So if it's winter, I have two quilts, and in the summer I just have that one quilt. And I just yesterday noticed a spot where um the seam was like, when I pressed it, there was like more fabric on one side of the seam than the other, and so it was kind of folded over, and the
Mm-hmm.
quilting like went over that seam and kind of folded the fabric back. And I first time in 6 years just noticed that one thing, and not like it's a mistake, but I was like, wow, I never even knew this thing was here, and I've been sleeping with this quilt on my bed for 6 years. Like,
And it's still a perfectly functional quilt, right?
exactly. So it just goes to show you, like, I made the quilt and I still didn't even notice it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's good to work out those mistakes or learn, like, see them, because then you learn from them and you
Mm-hmm.
can, notice them for next time. And
Or just let it be.
yeah, just say, okay, I did that. And then next quilt, try to remember not to do that thing again, or
Yeah.
just be more aware. But yeah, it's, it's
That's
just,
one thing I'm working on this year is be less critical of my own work.
mm,
Because I'm the type of person like every single seam needs to match, or every little point needs to be perfect.
mhm.
And I'm just learning to let it go. Like, it's okay. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a quilt. People are gonna love it, or I'm gonna love it. It's gonna stay here in the house. If it's for my daughter, she's gonna love it. She doesn't even know what a mistake is yet.
Yeah.
She just is. So let's just let it be.
Yeah. Yeah,
But it's so
exactly.
hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And that, like, I'm also very critical of my own work too. So I can understand that. But it was funny because I was teaching long arming for a little bit, and I would always tell them, like, oh, don't worry about the little wobbles or mistakes in your pantograph, because that's, what puts you in the quilt. It puts the humanity into the quilt instead of just another store-bought machine-made item that doesn't have any personal touches. And what you see is wobbly and, maybe not perfect, but to the person who receives it, all they see is that you made them something. And I would tell people that all the time, but then as soon as I make a mistake, I'm like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
such an idiot." I'm like yelling at myself, and I'm like, "Right, I should probably practice what I'm telling other people to
Preaching.
do." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I find that as a teacher myself. I'm like, it's okay when you're writing, don't even think about what you're writing. Just put it out on paper. We'll edit it later.
Mhm.
But when it's me, I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I should know better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
sh-
that grace for yourself is really important when you're especially a creative maker, because a lot of times you're just trying things out to see if they work, or just trying to express your creativity, and it's not about the perfection. It's about, did you get the message across that you were trying to create? And so
Right.
it's hard to remember that though sometimes.
Yeah. This
But
quilt that I have right here, I
mhm,
wrote the pattern and I made a sample. And there are hourglass wax in it.
mhm,
And I arranged them all perfectly. I took a picture. And then I went to my sewing machine and I sewed them, and some
Mhm.
of the hourglasses are not facing the right way.
Oh no.
But I didn't realize it until it was already quilted, bound, and I was just taking a picture to show it to a friend,
Yeah.
and I wanted to cry. But I'm like, no, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a quilt. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. And you
But
didn't notice it that whole time. Like, it's probably
exactly.
fine. It's probably fine. Yeah. No, there have been times, and one of like my most favorite quilts I've made, but also it has some of the mistakes that are the hardest for me to look at because they're just silly things that I was in such a hurry. I didn't really notice them at the time because I was hurrying. And then, yeah, again, once it was quilted and bound, I was like, oh no. But nobody else, nobody else sees it. So it's like, it's just me picking out the parts I know I messed up on, but it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad too because I was like, well, it was a test pattern and I didn't do it right. And, because I was right up against the deadline again. So I had to take a break from testing quilts because I'm just like, I'm too busy. I can't. I don't have the time, which is so sad because I loved the experience of testing quilt patterns. But
Yeah. Same. I love testing, but I don't have the time to do it anymore.
yeah, I
Or at
bet.
least right now.
Yeah. Because you're writing your own patterns too. So you
Hmm.
need testers.
Exactly. But I love testing for other people because I learned to be a better writer the way that
Hmm.
I see other people teach or explain certain things.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I bet that's a good way to learn the pattern writing process too, is to see how other people do it and what works for you to understand a pattern. Because I think some people write patterns and they word things a certain way, and then like I might read it and go, I have no idea what this person's trying to ask me to do. But to them, it made perfect
Right.
sense. It's like you have to think about your whole audience and who's going to be reading your pattern, and are you giving enough information to help them, but not too much that it overwhelms them? And
Hmm.
there's a sweet spot, and the ones who are good are really good, and the ones who aren't, I it's sad.
I try to come at it from like a language learner point of view, which
Mhm.
I still consider myself learning the language. So I think of myself when I had very basic knowledge of English and trying to read something and I just could not get it.
Yeah.
So I try to come to write my patterns. You know, the teaching method, like the I+1,
Mhm.
where you are plus the one difficulty level. So you don't find it off-putting, but challenging enough for you to keep wanting to do it.
Yeah.
I try to implement that in my pattern writing. Um, yeah, I'm not
Okay.
saying I'm a great pattern writer, but I think I'm good.
But it works. Well,
Yeah.
I think not everybody's going to love every style, but I think when you find your people that love you, then they are like loyal, and they share your work with other people because they are so excited about feeling good about making a pattern that they could understand and work through, and which is,
Yeah.
word of mouth is like the best compliment for that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that's yeah. So you
Yeah.
have a
It's
new sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's really rewarding to me whenever I get a message, someone saying, "Hey, I just made this pattern and I loved it. You know, the writing is so clear and the images help out. It's so great." It's just like lights my light a little brighter every day.
Yeah.
You know, makes me just a little like, "Oh yay, somebody
Yeah.
appreciates it."
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's so nice to get that positive feedback because then it's like, okay, this is giving people
Hmm.
joy. Like if you get
Hmm.
joy from it, that's cool and that's great. But when you can help bring joy to other people, that makes it that much more exciting.
And it
So,
makes it worth their money, right? Because
yeah.
hey, for a pattern, you want it to be something that's usable and understandable, and you
Hmm.
want you want people to find the worth in the work that you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm.
That's so cool. So you have a new pattern that just came out in April did it come out?
Which one?
Um, the name is just slipping my mind. It came out with your Sewcialite bundle.
Oh, my Rosalia pattern.
Yes, thank you. So sorry. I could not remember. I'm like, I should have written it down.
No, sorry. I feel like I put a pattern out in March, one in April, one in May.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
was like back to back to back.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a lot of work. It was 3 months,
Yeah.
very little sleep, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, my Rosalia pattern is the one that came together with my bundle for AGF.
Okay.
So it's a free pattern on my website.
Okay.
Hmm.
It's beautiful and your bundle is beautiful. And I was just like drooling over it because I love AGF solids. And
Thank you.
when I saw your bundle and the Rosalia pattern, I was like, this might be the one. This might be the one. So
Oh, I'm glad I'm the one for you.
yeah. Yeah. I just love those
Yay.
colors. They're so fun and bright and happy. And
Thank you. That's what I
yeah.
really wanted to put out there. Just some really bright colors, so vivid. I feel like they represent me in an essence.
Mhm.
And yeah, I love the bright colors.
Yeah.
And even though I only wear black,
Right.
mostly black, my clothes are bright colors, and I love it.
Yeah. I think it's fun, like, because like the quilt behind me and all the quilts in my house are just all colorful and crazy prints. And I love tulip pink and I love rifle paper and I love, art gallery. I have all these like big, bold prints and just colors. But then, yeah, my clothes, I'm like, I will wear a gray t-shirt and black pants. And I will, sometimes I have bright things, but it's like mostly my color palette on my clothes is so moody compared to like what fabric I like to work with. So,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but
I
it's
only wear black, but you can find my shelf and it's all bright colors.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's great. And I think too, like you don't have to wear a quilt, so you can use colors that maybe you wouldn't like on your own self, but then you can put it in a quilt. Like there's some colors that just look awful on me, so but I do love them as colors, and so I tend to put
Yeah,
them in quilts more often because on my body, no good.
I hear you. Yeah.
But, that's fun. So then you had another pattern release after that one. So in May, what pattern was that?
It's called the mini quilt.
Okay.
Yes.
And what
And
what inspired that one?
it's inspired in a house core step block. And it's a variation on that block.
Okay.
Um, is named after my daughter's favorite dinosaur.
Oh,
She's 2.5 and she has a favorite dinosaur. And I was struggling to find a name for this pattern. And she was really into dinosaurs and all she wanted to show me was her Mimi. And then it sounds like our nickname for her. My daughter's name is Minerva and we call her
okay.
Minnie.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like that's the perfect name.
Oh, cute. I
Yeah,
love that. How fun. And
yeah,
that has that been received pretty well or like
yeah. I did pretty well.
yeah.
I am. I don't know, like I don't know what to compare it to, but compared to my first quilt, which tomorrow is the anniversary of me putting out my first quilt ever.
Ooh,
Um, yeah, I did pretty well. No
awesome.
complaints.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so cool. How fun.
Yeah.
I just get I do get inspired by people who see, they have these images in their mind and they want to put it on paper and make a quilt out of it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I need instructions because I get panicked when I have to just like make something up or, design something. My mom is like that too. I don't think she would ever like formally write a pattern, but if she
Mhm.
sees something, she'll like, I can make that into a quilt and she'll figure it out. Or if somebody's like, oh, I kind of want a quilt like this or like this, and she'll just like sketch something out and they're like, oh, that's exactly it. And then she just makes it. And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a talent.
it
That's
is
really
like,
good.
yeah. So I feel so inspired by it, which is so fun. And, I'm a quilter, so I use lots of patterns. So I love when I can find things that, spark my interest and make me feel excited. And thankfully there's a lot out there, but I think, it's fun to find like the group of pattern writers that you like that
Yes.
have your similar style that can, you know, translate design and ideas into something that you want to have around you. And
Hmm.
it's, there's just a wealth of inspiration out there.
There's so much out there, so many resources, and so many different things to find inspiration on. Just, I
Yeah.
wish I had 4 more hours a day to
Mhm.
dedicate just to writing, or just to designing, or just to quilting.
Yeah.
But
There's never enough time.
never enough hours in a day.
No, especially when you have kids.
Yeah, and you work a full-time job
Mhm.
that never
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, I can carve out time, but sometimes you just can't, and it's hard. And even if you intend, like, I'll just sit down for half an hour, sometimes you spend that half an hour doing something completely different and you're like, wow, I didn't do anything.
Yep, yep. And as a teacher, like, you don't leave the job at the door. It comes home with you.
Hmm.
So it's not, I'm like answering emails from parents, or a kid has a question about an assignment, or a coworker wants to plan. I'm like, no, this is time for me to be with my baby and later to quilt.
Yeah.
I don't want to answer these emails right now.
Right. I
Um,
know.
yeah, so it's really difficult to leave it at the door and then focus on something else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so trying to find that balance and disconnect, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important too in separating from your day job. But yeah, like you said, teaching is so hard to do that because you care about every single one of those kids and their progress, and people are wanting stuff from you all hours, and you're just like, having a hard boundary is almost impossible. But then, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
making time for your family and making time to do the stuff that you enjoy kind of takes a back seat sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think especially as women, we're expected to make everybody's needs more important than our own, and kind of conditioned to think that the needs of everyone else should come first, and we're not good if we want to put our needs first instead of someone else's. And so fighting that, like, at least for me, fighting that spiraling thought in my head is so hard sometimes,
So hard. Yeah.
because it's like it's not morally, there's no morality to it. But it's made to feel that way, especially for, like, you're not a very good at being a woman if you're not like getting walked all over. And
Yeah.
like, then I don't want to be good at it.
Not anymore.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I did it. I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm over it. Thank you.
exactly.
And I think teachers get it worse, whether you're a female or a male teacher, like, but especially female teachers, I think we just get that short end of the stick on a lot of things, and
Hmm.
just like not considered as like real full whole human beings outside of the job itself. So, but that's my soapbox. So I'll step off of it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, not to detour from quilting, but
Uh-huh.
you did have a story that some people have been itching to hear about the time that you had to wear a cast for 2 months, but you didn't have a broken bone. So I think we should let the people have it. And
All right. It's a funny story, but back in the Dominican Republic, we had we had our house, and there was this lot next to us that was empty.
Mhm,
And it was overgrown with bushes. There were trees and fruit plants, and um, there was a lemon tree and a bunch of things.
mhm,
And we had a pretty big yard. All the kids in the neighborhood would get together after school, and we were playing dodgeball.
mm,
But we didn't have an actual ball. So what we were using was a plastic gallon.
Oh, okay.
So we just throw that at each other back and forth. And then our gallon went to the lot with all the bushes and all that
Uh-huh.
stuff. And I went to get it because, like, I'm gonna go get it. And I went and I climbed the fence and I jumped and I fell on my knee and I felt something go in my knee.
Uh-huh.
I was like, whatever, didn't pay any attention to it. I was like, I'll just keep playing. And I kept playing on my knee. Then it was hurting really bad, but I didn't tell my parents. I took a bath and I went to bed.
Oh no.
I didn't have dinner. I just went to bed, and then in the middle of the night, I just could not move my leg. I could not move it. It was just stiff.
Yeah.
So I started screaming. Called my mom. They rushed me to the ER. They found that I had a thorn from the lemon tree stuck behind my patella, which is that flat bone in your knee.
Yeah.
It was stuck in there, and behind that bone we have a little sac with liquid that lubricates our knees, and I had to puncture that.
Oh
And
no.
so all that liquid was just sitting around all that tissue and all that in my knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had to drain
Oh
all of that out.
my gosh.
They gave me a cast for 2 months as to immobilize the knee,
Uh-huh.
so that the sac and the liquid will have time to regenerate itself before my knee had to go back to work,
Yeah.
doing all the work that a knee does. And
Oh,
yeah, that's how I wore a cast for two
oh
months
my
without breaking a
gosh.
bone.
Oh, that's terrible. So,
Yeah,
ew, that went inside your knee. Oh, I just like I have
yeah.
terrible knees. I injure them. I injured them a lot as a kid, and I got in a car accident when I was like 20 and had to get stitches in one knee because like my knee hit the steering wheel column so hard that it popped my skin open in 3 spots. So
Ooh.
I've had like a lot of trauma to the knee. So like hearing that story, I'm like, my knees hurt. Ouch. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I remember my cast was from my ankle all the way
Yeah.
up my thigh. So I would walk like I had a peg leg,
Yeah.
just like
Oh
um
gosh.
and so I wore it for so long that I needed physical therapy to go back to getting my knee to bend properly and my joints to work right, and for me
Yeah.
not to walk like I was
Like a
walking on a peg leg.
like a pirate.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My niece broke her leg like really bad one summer, and it was like right at the beginning of summer, and she had to wear a full leg cast for most of the summer. And same thing, she had to do physical therapy because she was like hobbling all funny on it when she first started walking. We were like, "What are you doing?" She was like, "Leave me alone." Oh, I was like, "No, you look hilarious."
Oh.
No, she was a good sport. We're just being silly, but yeah, it took her a while to like get back to because she wore that cast for a long time,
Yeah.
like the whole summer, because it was
Oh.
so the break was so bad. She had like they had one of those big, inflatable jump house thingies, and it had a water slide off one side,
Oh.
and she was at the top of that and like slipped and jumped off like the top, and when she landed, that's what she broke her leg.
Ugh.
I know, it's crazy.
Ugh.
But
That sounds painful.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, well, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what happened to my knee.
Your
And that's
poor
why I had to wear a
knee.
cast
Do
for
you have
two
problems
months.
with your knee at all? Is it just back to normal? Like,
It's back to normal. I mean, I think as a kid, like I said before, we're so resilient. It was
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But I have tried to pick up running,
Uh-huh.
and after a while, just my knee just cannot handle it.
Yeah.
So I would build up the courage. Like I would run for a month, and then my knee will stop bothering me, and then I will stop, and I will take a break, and I will
Yeah.
try it again, and then it was just that constant cycle.
Yeah.
So I don't run anymore.
Yeah.
Don't even
No.
try it.
No. It's hard. It's so hard on your knees too, especially like just all that pounding force. And I was trying to be a runner because my husband's a runner, and I would do some 5Ks, and then I did a half marathon, and that destroyed me because my knees are like not okay. So I just don't run anymore. I'm like, I'll just lift weights. That's enough. So it's
Yeah,
tricky.
yeah. All I do is run my mouth.
Yeah. You're like, I'll run something.
That's all I run nowadays.
Me too, actually. So it works, right?
Yeah, it's perfect exercise.
Yeah, something's running. Something's getting
Exactly.
worked. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so funny. Wow. That's bonkers. I still can't get like my knee still hurts thinking about it, but now people know why you had to wear a cast and the mysteries can be solved.
Yeah, I've never broken a bone, but I had a cast.
That's so lucky. Like, well, I think on your post where you mentioned that and then we were like, I'm not telling anybody. I had said I had the one stress fracture and that was from running. So, did you had to use crutches or like
No, I would just walk around, just like hobble
yeah.
around all day.
Wow. Because it
Yeah,
wasn't about putting the pressure on, it was just keeping the knee from
yeah,
moving
from
around too
bending.
much.
Hmm. And I
Wow.
remember the cast would like roll down, and then my mom would pull it up where it's
Yeah.
supposed to go every couple of days. Yeah,
That's so funny. Well, because you're like your muscles and stuff, because you're not using them the right way, they shrink up. So I can imagine that the cast would shift a little bit.
yeah, and I was all like a 7, 8 year old kid. I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna stop doing what I'm doing. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep running around, even if I just
Uh-huh.
hobble around. I would just keep playing dodgeball.
Oh my God.
It never
You're like,
ended.
it's fine. I'm fine.
Hey, let's go. My
That's
turn.
that's hilarious. We did catch
Yeah.
because my nephew just broke his wrist like last week. So
Oh,
I know the poor kid can't catch a break, but he was at my parents' house with a friend and they were out in the front yard, like rolling around playing football. And we were like, hey, he was like, oh, I'm sorry. We're like, what are you like? What? He's like, I don't know. I just want to play. We're like,
no.
we know, but it's,
I feel him in March, right before the announcement from AGF.
Mhm.
I did not tore my rotator cuff, but I injured it somehow.
Oh
I was
no.
getting up from a table. I put my weight on my hands at school
Yeah.
and I just pushed up. And I remember just feeling like this heat. And then my shoulders started hurting.
Yeah.
And then I went to urgent care. They told me it was a rotator cuff. I needed to get an x-ray to see if it was broken. It was fine.
Mhm.
But I had to wear my arm in a sling for about 2 weeks.
Ugh.
But I just wanted to quilt.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sit at a machine and quilt. So like wear it and like try to like take my arm out just a little bit so that I
Yeah.
can guide, and still use
Yeah.
it. And then I remember my daughter's daycare is across from a playground.
Mhm.
And she wanted to go to the playground. I'm like, no, mommy's shoulders hurt. Mommy's shoulder hurts. We should go home. And she points to my other shoulder. She goes, that one doesn't hurt.
Oh.
The other one hurt, mommy?
Not that one.
I
You've
guess
got
you're
two hairs,
right.
mom. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I guess her point was, you can sit down in the machine and quilt. You
mhm.
can take me to the playground too. You
Yeah.
have that whole other arm. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's funny. I like that. She's a girl who knows what she wants. So good luck with that.
Thank you. She's not even 3, and
Yeah.
it's already a handful.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my family called me Demanda when I was that age because of how demanding I was. And I'm like, well, you know, and here I am. It worked out. It was fine. So I think it's good. We need more
Perfect.
demanding women out there who know what they want.
I love it. That's all I want to raise. A
Yeah.
strong, independent woman.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh. How cute. That's so funny. She's like,
So
not
cute.
that shoulder, mom. Come on.
The other one doesn't hurt. You have a good point. That's not the point.
Like the point is I want to go home.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst when kids kind of outsmart you're like, oh, I have an excuse. I don't really want to go to the park, so I'll sell. And they're like, no, like I have a workaround. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're such a good problem solver. Thank you.
Love it. Who taught you that?
Yeah. Oh, me?
Why did I
Oh,
do that?
shoot.
Why did I
Okay.
do that to myself?
Yeah. Should have waited. Should have waited a couple years. No. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Oh man. Well, do you have any fun projects coming up soon? Or new patterns you're going to release later this year?
I do. I have a pattern coming out with Mary from Merry-Go-Round membership.
Okay.
So it's I'm going to be the featured designer in July. I have a fun pattern coming out. It's called the
Okay.
Dancing Jasmines,
Ooh.
and it's gonna be cute.
Ooh, fun. Is
Yes,
it
it's that
like,
one that I messed up with the hourglasses. But
oh,
yeah,
okay. But it'll be
still
fine.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still beautiful.
So is it inspired
Um,
by jasmine flowers or?
yes.
Okay.
So in the Dominican Republic, I know we have them here in the US, but we have this little flower. It has like 4 petals, and they
Mhm,
look like they're dancing if the wind
mhm.
hits them. So
Yeah.
it's inspired on that flower.
Oh.
I try to ask my family what was the name of the flower so that I can Google it and
Mhm.
the name in English. So I think it's a jasmine in English, and that's why we called it the dancing jasmines.
Okay. Fun.
Yeah, so that's coming out, and then my collaboration with Aurifil was just announced. So I'm excited to work with them and put out some projects in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm still working with AGF. So, oh,
That's
I am doing the Instagram takeover the last weekend of this month. So
okay.
June 30th through July 2nd.
Okay. That's so
Yay.
fun. So we'll look for
Yeah.
you on their Instagram on that last weekend in June.
Yeah. I'm also doing a quilt along that's going
Okay.
to be starting next week, June 14th, for
Okay.
my free pattern, Rosalia. So
Okay.
if you want to join us, June 26th, it's just 2 weeks into the quilt along, you can catch up.
Yeah. I'll just I'll get that bundle ordered and I'll create a new hour in the day for myself because
Yes,
like I quilt all day long but never for myself. So it's it's
I
dicey.
hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. So
But I'm excited. This is my very first quilt along.
yeah.
Um, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're figuring it out
Yeah.
as we
Gotta
fly the
start
plane.
somewhere.
Exactly. We're building the plane as we're flying it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. It's kind of how
It's
things
gonna be
go, right? Most of the
gonna be
time.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get it up in the air and you can finish the rest when you're up there.
Exactly.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
and this is totally random, but as a kid, I thought the United States was high up on the ground
Oh.
because whenever a plane takes off, it goes up
Oh.
in the air. So I thought it was like literally
Like
up
high.
above. Yeah, and that's why we took planes to get there. And this just came into my mind because I was talking to my students about this. We were talking about how the fires from Canada and all that smoke is coming to, New York City and it's coming down the Northeast. And then that memory came into my mind and I was telling my students about it and they're like, "Oh man, you were so dumb." I'm like, I was a kid,
Yeah. Well, and if you've
I'm sure
never,
you believed weird things too when you were little.
for sure, for sure. Like, and if you've never really like traveled that much or haven't necessarily experienced being on an airplane, like how else would you know?
Exactly. If you only see them take off, or you
Right?
only see them in the air, but you don't see them coming down, then you assume that
Yeah.
it's high up in the air. That's
Yeah.
it.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I could I could totally see how you would think that as a kid, but teenagers are mean, so not all of them,
Yeah,
but sometimes
they're they're brutal.
they can be. I'm like, wow, thanks, bestie. My niece is
Keeping me in
13.
check.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
My
keeping
older
me
niece.
humble.
Yeah. I'm like, she'll say something to me. I'm like, Ava Bell, why are you so mean to me? She's like, I don't know. She's like, wow, nice shorts. And I'm like, wow, nice face. Like, what? Why are we having this conversation? I hate it. You're so mean.
What a comeback.
I know. I mean, it makes sense. She does come by it honestly because we're all pretty sassy, but then she'll like
Yeah,
come in and give me a huge hug and like squeeze me so tight. And I'm just like, ugh, fine. I love you too.
yeah. That one kid that always gives me a hard time accidentally calls me mom. I'm like,
Mhm.
I know, I know.
I
This
know.
is why you give me a hard time.
Yeah.
I know, baby.
Aw, yeah. It's so funny too. When they do, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like more, I think, I guess like it probably happens more frequently when they're younger. Like I used to get called mom all the time by my third graders because they're just still in that like mom, mom, mom. But probably as teenagers, they probably feel embarrassed. But I think that shows that they're comfortable with you or like that they trust you that enough to just like slip and call you mom.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
kind of
they
cool.
really do appreciate your presence, even though they don't readily admit it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes
So,
kids have tough walls to break down, but they're there for a reason and it's just nice to be in a spot where you can be an unconditionally accepting person in their life.
yeah.
So it's tough, but that's I think I told my husband too, because every once in a while he'll be like, "You're sure you don't miss teaching?" I'm like, "No, I don't miss it. I do kind of miss the kids sometimes, but also like I don't miss the heartbreak I would feel all the time. Like just seeing the kids who are experiencing some you know, yucky things that I couldn't do anything about. And so I would come home and just
Hmm.
cry and cry and cry over certain students because there was just like I felt so helpless and not that I,
Yeah.
couldn't be helpful or couldn't see myself being in that position again, but it took a huge toll on my mental health just like when I wasn't necessarily my mentally healthiest either, trying to be stability for people when I didn't even have that stability for my own self. So it was just like
Yeah.
not a good position for me to be in, but you know, it's tricky.
It is. And right now I'm really struggling with that same thing you're saying.
Mm.
Because before I used to have the mental capacity to come home and cry over kids' issue and like worry about it. But now I don't have the space to
Right.
occupy it and I feel so guilty about it.
Hmm.
And I'm at this point where I'm debating the sunk cost fallacy. Like I
Hmm.
put in 13 years, do I want to give up now?
Right.
Um, but it's I am not happy with the classroom right now. I am struggling with my mental health.
Hmm.
I am I suffer from a lot of anxiety after having my baby.
Mm.
And every day that I'm at school and I'm thinking of all the things that could go wrong and not being able to be there for my baby and
Yeah.
that mental load is just like
Yeah.
all day, every day, and still expect to perform and do my job and be everything that my students need and respond to teaching in an engaging lesson and
Yeah.
respond to my admin's email within 3 minutes of getting it. It's so much
Right.
um, that I don't know. I think I should pull the plug. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard because yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm eight. If I get 10 years in this, and I was just like, I can't do this for one more day. Like, I can't, like, those what ifs don't matter more than me getting healthy and me betting on myself and taking a chance on, running this business with my mom and starting this podcast and just doing the things that were giving me joy because I wasn't finding joy in teaching anymore. And I think there is that still pressure, especially because I think teaching the profession itself and how it's run, like there's still that like old thinking that like, oh, you have to stay in this for a really long time and you have to retire from this. And, you know, it's at the end of the day, like I can invest my money in a certain way that I can end up with more retirement than I would have if I had stuck it out teaching and retired at 67 or whatever I would have needed to do, like to get my benefits. And like,
Hmm.
I just could not betray myself long enough to stick it out and like, well, I can just push through, like, especially when I was trying to heal from that way of thinking of like I can just push through the hard stuff because I need to be tougher than that or I need to be you know I can just deal with it. And it was causing physical, like I was having physical health problems because of the stress and like I just couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I know some people love it, they stay in it, and that's I love them for that. Like I worship teachers. I think they're the most amazing people and they're the most needed people in our society. And but like also people who can be honest about where they're at and do things that they can actually help contribute. Like if I felt like if I stayed, I wouldn't be contributing because I would have just been such a mess that I wouldn't have like benefited the classroom in any way. So
Yeah.
I feel yeah, the struggle is real and it's hard because at least for me, like I felt like I was letting the school down. I felt like I was letting my students down and letting down the people who cheered me on as I got my degree and my master's degree. And like then I was just like, I'm not doing it anymore. And they're like, oh, but it's not about them. Like it's about, it's about you, each individual person. And so mm.
You're speaking to my soul right now. I'm about to write my resignation letter.
Do it. I'll sign it for you. No, I'm
I'm
just
gonna
kidding.
cry.
No. Oh,
It's just so hard.
it
It's
is
so
so
hard.
hard. It's so hard. And I don't think
Yeah.
people see that. Like, I know a lot of people do, but I just think as a greater society, people don't see how hard it is. And it doesn't matter how many Instagram posts people make, it doesn't matter how many YouTube videos of like craziness goes out. Like, people still have their opinions. And as a people, if we stay so divided, like nothing's going to change. And it's like,
Yeah.
sorry, I don't want to be a cog in this system anymore because it's not working. It's not working for the kids. It's not working for the teachers.
It's not.
So,
And the kids are not the same after the pandemic.
no,
And I'm not the same after the pandemic.
no.
And expected to perform just that I used to be
Hmm.
pre-pandemic days is just an unrealistic expectation for everybody.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I also find that a lot of my students, at least, were on their own for 2 years. Their
Mm.
parents were at work and they were the ones in charge of their siblings, of their house, of themselves for 18 months or however long they were on their own.
Right.
And so trying to get them to do anything is such a combative, and not all the students are like this,
No.
some, it's such a combative situation because they're so independent, because they have been on their own for so long with no one telling them what to do,
Hmm.
that it just makes the job so much harder. Like
Hmm.
if you just open your eyes and look at what I'm trying to tell you and just listen to me, we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
Um, but like I don't know, the blinders are still there, and that
Yeah.
mentality that I'm doing what I governed myself for 18 months. So who are you to tell me what to do?
Right. And at that age, like a year and a half seems like such a long time that I can imagine that it's like, yeah, I did this for, so much time. Like, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. But it's just a hazard of being a teenager. Like you think you know more than you do. And it's hard. It's hard to like come back from that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how do
Why
you get
would you come back from that?
right? And with, that kind of, it's not like hardcore neglect, but neglect enough that these kids think they're fine without guidance and support. And it wasn't the parents' choice necessarily to be gone
Right.
or to neglect the situation. But, again, that's a societal issue where we've created this normalcy around parents not being around their kids. And it's, I don't like it. I mean, I grew up homeschooled mostly, so I was around my parents all the time, or my mom all the time because my dad went to work. But so when I got to get away from them, I was like, see ya. But now look at me. I'm right back where I started and I work with my mom and I see them every day. And, you know,
Yeah. Back under the wing.
yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, anyway, it's just so hard. And just seeing people go through it and just watching people, retire early or just quit out because they're like, I can't do this anymore. There's no structure, there's no accountability, the expectations are so high, but there's no like clear path on how to meet those expectations. And
Yeah.
ugh,
And also, I went to school for teaching. this is what I saw myself doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So now I'm like grieving and reconciling that within myself as well. So that's a whole nother level of turmoil that, you know, I have to work through at the moment.
Oh yeah.
It's so much. It's so hard.
Yeah. No, yeah. It took a lot of therapy for me. Like, but ultimately that's how I ended up seeing how dysfunctional my environment was because I was in therapy at the time. And so then when I was like, guess what? I'm gonna quit teaching. She was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, are you sure? Like you literally just got your master's degree. I'm like, yes, I'm sure. I hate it. She was like, so it was like months of talking it out and like unpacking it and digging in and like you said, grieving. I had to grieve this identity that I was holding so tight to that like, well, I'm a teacher. If I'm not a teacher, I'm nothing. Like,
who am I? What am I? And I come from a family. My dad is a teacher. His dad was a teacher. His siblings are teachers for the most part. So I feel like it's in my lineage.
Yeah.
But also like, man, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
So I feel like I'm letting my family down. There's so many layers to this.
yeah, no, I was in that same boat too. I'm like, but they were so proud of me. And I would just sit there and sob and like my parents were proud of me for, getting a degree. And I'm the first kid to get like out of my siblings, I'm the only one who has a college degree. Like my dad got one later in life. And so he graduated 2 years before I did from college. But like it just was like it was a big deal. But then at the same time, like on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, it wasn't as big of a deal as I made it. Like in my head, I had worked it up. Like if I quit, then they're not going to be proud of me anymore. Like they're gonna think I'm letting them down and all this stuff. And I like unleashed on my mom. I was like, are you guys still gonna be proud of me when I quit teaching? She was like, yeah, why are what? I was like, I just feel like it's the only thing that makes you proud of me. She was like, are you kidding me? I was like, no, this is serious. I was like sobbing. She was like, oh my God. But I think just those reassurances help too. You do need to know that your community, your people have your back, and it's still hard. So I feel you. Ugh, I hope you can figure out the path that works best for you because it is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. But a decision will be made.
Yeah.
I have 3 more instructional days to figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
I got this. Yeah. More than 3 days. Like our school year goes through June 27th.
Oh, okay.
So I have until June 27th to figure it out.
That's a long school year.
I know, but we do start teaching after Labor Day.
Oh, okay.
It's pushed back for us in the city.
That makes sense. Well, that's
New York City.
That is how it is for the whole city?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, ours starts so early. Our schools start in like the middle of August and then they get out before Memorial Day. So our kids are done at the end of May. So
I would guess that's nice.
yeah, I don't know. Because when they go back to school in the middle of August, it's still so hot outside. Like there's still more
summer.
Yeah. So I wish they would go back later almost because then they go to school for like 2 weeks and then they have a long weekend and then they're in school until, Thanksgiving break. So they have like a long stretch, but then they're, back to school for 2 weeks and then they have Christmas break and then they're back. And the spring semester is so long. So they're like, well, we have to make sure we get the instructional days. And it's just like, ugh, kids burn out so fast in the spring because they haven't had enough. They're like itching to get back to summer, but I think if they really rode out the whole summer, then I don't know.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Worry.
Yeah. We're just people who like to sew, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Well, this has been so fun chatting with you and getting to know you and
Yeah, it has been lovely talking about teaching with you. We should do another podcast and talk about quilting.
Yeah, we should. I know. I'm like, oh, we didn't really talk about quilting that much, but I
That's okay.
definitely I think, we're just multifaceted people and quilting is in there and you make it you make it fun to look at on your Instagram and you know,
Thank you. I'm
so
working on it.
yeah, you're doing some really great things. So I love to see that. And, I always love to get to know the person behind the quilts because I want to know where your head's at, like what inspires you. So to me, this was like the perfect conversation because now I know
That's
more things and I'm
sweet.
like, okay, I love this.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Yeah. And we will watch for your Instagram takeover for
June 30th
June
through July
30th
2nd.
through July 2nd. Okay, June 30th through July 2nd. We'll watch for that. And we'll look for we'll watch your quilt along as it happens and just see all the beautiful makes and look forward to your
Yeah.
upcoming projects.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I've never done an Instagram takeover either. So this is the year of a lot of firsts for me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. That'll be so fun. I know I love Instagram takeovers because then it's like you get to see, the people you love that you follow doing something so fun with a brand that you love. So it's like, I don't know, it just feels really cool. So I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, this has been so fun, and I'm excited for people to finally learn why you had a cast, and they can satisfy that itch that is not being scratched by not knowing your story.
I guess I should have clarified, but then it's so long after
Yeah,
like the getting to the cast part. It's just so long, you know?
yeah.
This is
But
better.
you don't have to type it all out or try to make
Right.
some Instagram story that people are gonna miss out and be like, "Wait, what? I missed something." I'm like, "Yeah, you did, and I'm not repeating myself."
Yeah. I did a whole Instagram story on how to pronounce my name,
Yeah.
and the story behind it, but then I didn't save it. And I feel like I should have done that so people can go back because I get a lot
Oh,
of messages or emails of people asking me, "How do you say your name? Is
yeah.
it Vickeidy? Is it Vickeidy?"
Oh,
No,
no.
it's like Katie, but with a
Okay.
V.
I was wondering the same thing. I was like, it can't be Vickeidy because I mean it could be, but I was just like, I know if I say it that way, it's gonna be wrong and I'm just gonna look like a giant idiot. So I'm just gonna ask. And it works out better that way. So but yeah, that would be cool. I mean, to have a little highlight. So if people are wondering, you can be like, just go to my story highlight about how to say my name.
I like that. I'm gonna do that.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Gives people some knowledge and they probably feel more comfortable reaching out too.
that's true. I am definitely gonna do that. Thank you
You're welcome.
so much for the idea.
Of course, of course.
Let me know where to send you a check for the counseling for today.
That one's on me. This one's free.
Oh, okay. Thank
Oh
you.
my god. Yeah, thanks. Well, hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yes, we will. I'll see you on
Okay.
Instagram for
Oh,
sure.
okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.